back to Executive Order 13912 on March 27th, 2020. There were 4 Title 14 orders put in that as well. That's your puddle pirates. That's your Coast Guard. That's your coasties. They were even called out of retirement. One of those was a retirement order. Man, that's when you know it's really special. When you get to come off your couch after getting fat and happy, when the military tells you if you got a reserve clause still on your contract, don't get fat and happy. Well, if someone had done got fat and happy, they were having to go back to duty. All right? So, see, you got to know these things. And so many Americans have no idea that all these different orders exist in the military. Well, who does the Coast Guard operate under? The Department of Homeland Security. Unless what? Wartime. Then they transfer it to whom? Department of War with the Department of the Navy. And that's why Mobile, Alabama, my birthplace, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and Miami, Florida, they've had striker units deployed there for quite a while. Out of San Diego, they have Coast Guard and naval units connected to each other, and all those striker units from the Navy are on Coast Guard bases in Mobile, Alabama, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and Miami, Florida. So when you take the Federal Continuity Directives 1 and 2 and the joint planning and joint operations of the military, which ties in your federal and your military operations, then you take your Executive Order 13961, the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy, and Executive Order 13963, which is the most recent 2-day order of succession with the Department of War. All right, 3 days apart, December the 7th and 10th, 2020. You take your Law of War Manual terms. You take the fact that quote-unquote Joe, they show you that quote-unquote Joe has a 2022 National Security Strategy, but how come it's not posted on the Department of Defense Strategies history page? It's not on there. So why isn't it posted there? Why is President Trump's the most recent National Security Strategy posted? I know why. I know why. I know why. How come quote-unquote Joe and quote-unquote the Ho and quote-unquote the DNC and quote-unquote Obama, see all the Republicans? Oh boy, if I heard this one time, I heard it a million. Republicans throughout 21 and 25 was saying, Obama's back here pulling the strings. It's not really Joe or Kamala. It's Obama back. Okay, how come Obama couldn't terminate Executive Order 13823? If you go back and painfully watch the babbling, stammering Stan, quote-unquote Joe's campaign of 2020, he campaigned majority of 2020 that he was going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. Well, if you go back to President Trump's campaign in February 2016, he was out on the campaign trail, and Obama was somewhere, and Obama had said, we're going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. Same day, President Trump in speech said, I heard someone today say we're going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. No, we're not. We're going to keep it open. And on January the 30th, 2018, President Trump revoked a portion of Obama's executive order that was going to shut it down, get it rolling, where Congress could have it by executive order and say, all right, Obama got it started, we're going to shut it down. President Trump sliced it, and he issued Executive Order 13823 to keep it open. How come, quote-unquote, Joe couldn't revoke that? If Joe was president, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many times I got to say this, but I don't know what else I could do. I mean, this is so simple. This is just functions of a president. If Joe was real and if Joe was president, Joe would have had the same authority and power as every other president. But he could not revoke a single order by President Trump that applies to the military, that applies to all the deployments, that applies to all the election interference, FEMA, Coast Guards, Department of Homeland Security, National Guard, everything, nothing. 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies. This is not difficult, ladies and gentlemen. This is why it looks so atrocious to see people still out there following all these podcasters saying the deep state is in panic and all this other stuff. No, they're not. They're not even there. They're not. If you knew what you're supposed to know about President Donald John Trump, his laws, his orders, his enforcements, his actions, and the visuals of those, you'd probably be laying on a nude beach in California looking like a starfish. You'd be so relaxed right now. You'd be so happy right now. You'd be sipping on everything that you like to sip on and then some. You'd be so cool, calm, collect right now. You wouldn't look like some of these people out there. You'd just be chilling. You'd be like, gosh, these normies. That's what you look like. Just like this. So, another thing that ties in, and I want to address this with this because it ties in, because I keep seeing people out there get looking like a marblehead. And you shouldn't. If you knew the whole picture, the 40,000 foot view, the chronological order, and apply all of them, if you knew all of it, you wouldn't be struggling. Palantir. Let's go over Palantir again. This all ties in. If you go to a Yahoo Finance article, all right, they're talking about Palantir. This ties into data centers because we use data centers, and you see all these quote-unquote patriots and quote-unquote Republicans and quote-unquote conservatives all of a sudden whining and complaining about data centers. Ladies and gentlemen and marbleheads, data centers have been around since the 1940s, all right? And they have these different years and timelines of what they've increased because we have AI, we have technology, we have the internet, we have all these things like Facebook where you post your half-naked pictures for the world to see. Instagram where you're over there looking like a hooker. All right. All these things that people are doing. They got to house all this data somehow, some way. So either you want it or you don't, which includes your personal life as well and all your half-naked pictures that your daughters and all these other people are out there doing all over social media. Either you want that or you don't. Okay, let's terminate it. But if we terminate it, then we get rid of social media. I'm down for that. I'm cool for that. Every one of us that's over 40 years old, we lived in a time before internet, with the internet meaning social media apps and all these other things. We're cool with that. But if you're going to whine and complain and you want to keep your apps on your phones and you're housing all these photos and all this data and all these things, all the posts you're doing, and when you think of things like Rumble, you think of Facebook. That's why Facebook don't keep the videos anymore. That's why I take these and put them on Rumble, because they don't keep them as long anymore, because they're not housing that data. YouTube, they don't even know. The people of YouTube say they don't even know how many videos they have because people are uploading so many a day. Well, guess what someone has to do? The people of YouTube have to house that data, which means they're paying for it. You're not. That's why they made subscriptions for you to be able to follow things on YouTube without commercials. And they found a way to monetize it. That way they can pay for all this data. So if you're going to have the internet and you want to benefit from the internet, you might want to stop your whining and complaining and comprehend how this stuff works. Because most of you out there whining, complaining, and griping and groaning, but you're still utilizing it, you look dumb. That makes you a hypocrite. It's a contradiction. So Palantir is what President Trump, it started in 2011, yes, but President Trump took it over because he inherited that. It was a part of a contract that Palantir had already made with the United States military. So he inherited that. Well, just because he inherits something doesn't mean it's going to stay the same, you marblehead fools. He changed it. He's changed up leadership. Come on, people. Use these. It's what they're there for. So he inherits it. He changes it. Palantir article on finance. 4 words. 4 words sums up the whole article. This is what I'm teaching you here for. This is what I'm here for, to show you the words. You don't even have to read every article most of the time. You can just find the key words. It's what lawyers do. All right? Key words. 4 words in this article. Compiling data. Existing contracts. The people who are complaining the most about Palantir, guess what y'all say? Oh, we don't want them to have our information. They already had your information. Compiling data means they already had it. If they're compiling something, it means they already had it. So if you were already compromised, you were already compromised. Just like President Trump told you, 220 plus million people in the election, that China has all your information. So you either trust President Trump and the military, us, special operations of the military, which is still President Trump and his military. You've seen all the cleanouts of all these commanders. There's been 330 plus commanders relieved of duty since 2017. That's a record, ladies and gentlemen. It's a clean out. And it's what you're not cleaning out of your head and putting back in your head is the problem. You're not paying attention to what the president's doing. That is so biblical, historical, monumental. And it's a 40,000 foot view. There's so many things taking place. But this ties into your communication systems. The Space Force, when the Space Force was established, December the 20th, 2019. Following that, the Army and the Navy transferred all their communications out of the Army and the Navy to the Space Force. The Army transferred all their ground missile warning systems to the Space Force. So every bit of the systems are now communication systems, telecommunication systems are with the Space Force. That's why Elon is such a big deal. All throughout 2020, Elon was launching all these satellites with the Space Force. So this is why liberals look even more marble-headed, because they're sitting there whining, complaining about Elon, and he's sitting there protecting the whole world with his systems and the Space Force and all these systems that are collecting data the correct way. So you got to trust someone at the end of the day. And how you trust them is educating yourself with the things that matter. You are the government. We are the government. These representatives represent us. But it's a mutual reciprocality. They're supposed to be doing what they're doing because you don't want to be a House representative. You don't want to be a senator. You don't want to be a president. You don't want to be, most of you don't, right? So it's a reciprocality. If you're knowing and studying and learning and knowing what you're supposed to be doing and they're doing it, it'll be reciprocal. They won't be pulling anything over you, because when you're empowered and you know what you're supposed to know, then you'll be able to pick out the ones that ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing. The other thing is they will be sitting in a glass box from here out. What President Trump has done to the offices, plural, out there, he's made it to where they're going to be sitting in a glass box. Meaning they're going to be there for the right reasons, and they're going to be able to field questions for the right reasons, and they should field questions and give you the correct responses. But you won't know the correct response if you don't know the correct knowledge. Should I keep preaching? Do you want to listen to that line again? You won't know the correct response if you don't know the correct knowledge. And the correct knowledge is not drama. It's not propaganda. It's not all these other things out there. Because most of these podcasters, they're just new faces and new names, claim to be independent, claim to be all these things. And all they're doing is regurgitating opinions. They're not giving you sources. They're not writing books with laws and orders. They're not writing strategies. They're not strategists like me. They're not strategists or anything of that nature, right? They're not doing this. This is top of my head, right? I took the laws and orders, but then I show you all the strategies and tactics of irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, asymmetrical warfare, all the different forms of warfare, right? I wrote that off the top of my head. These people are not doing that, and it's what leads to confusion. But most of you are Christians. What does the Bible say? It says that God's not the author of confusion. So why are you listening to people who confuse you? You shouldn't be. You should be listening to people who empower you. And the people out there spreading false information about President Trump and Dan Scavino and Don Jr., Eric, me, all the ones out there saying we're all these different things and we're pawns and we're this and we're that. It's because they're marbleheads and they don't even know the laws and the orders. They're too dumb to break down the laws and orders. So what do they got to do? They got to spread all this false stuff because they're too dumb to do anything else. And you shouldn't be listening to those people. We're in a military operation. Therefore, you need military personnel and or federal personnel that knows what's going on. That are free to talk. I'm free to talk. Right? So Palantir compiling data from existing contracts. It's real simple. And then your Army, Navy transfers all communication.